Hey guys, welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys checking out today's episode and hanging with me a little bit. And guys, today we're going to be talking about tips and advice for fishing the Megabass Magdraft Swimbait, which is arguably the best swim bait on the market, probably the most famous swim bait on the market. Guys, I've been fishing this thing back in the prototype stages. I had a chance to use it before it came out on the market, as far as when it was just in the prototype development. So I've got tons of experience with it. What I want to do today in the video is I want to give you guys some tips and advice on how I catch fish on the Magdraft and things that work for me. So we're going to go over modifications, situations, where you want to throw it at, the tackle. Really going to be a good info pack video, because right now at the time of filming this video, we're in the first part of February, and a Magdraft, it starts to come into play really good once that water temperature starts to get into the low 50s. May or may not be that in your part of the country, but once that water temperature starts getting in the low 50s, you definitely want to have one of these things tied on. And there's a bunch of tricks to it. It's like a Magdraft, it's not just as easy as just throwing it out there and reel it in. There's a lot of different little nuances to this bait that's really going to help you guys catch some good fish. So we're going to get into that in today's episode. And also, guys, I'll put my Megabass Magdraft link and my Tackle Warehouse link in the description of this video. They've got several different sizes: the 5-inch, the 6-inch, the 8-inch, and the 10-inch model. This is the 6-inch here, so you can get one using my link in the description there. And by using that link, it's a really good way to help the channel out and support the channel, so appreciate that. Now, one other thing, real quick, guys, a quick reminder that we still have the 30% off sale on my Solar Bat series sunglasses going right now, RB2s and RB3s. I'll have my Solar Bat link in the description, or you can get them through my Tackle Warehouse link. So appreciate you guys putting up with plugs there. Really, I know it's a pain in the butt, but really appreciate that. Okay, I've been using the Magdraft, guys, before any of you guys even knew about the Magdraft or any pro that got used it. The Megabass Pro Staff, which is, there was just a couple of us at the time, got to use these prototypes years ago. And right off the bat, I knew there was something special about it. And there's some things I have learned about this bait over the years I want to pass on to you guys today in the video. I don't think that there's another swim bait out there that has had as much success in tournaments and regular fishing as the Magdraft. I mean, I've got buddies that swear by this thing, that fish just local tournaments. And you've obviously, Chris Zaldane has, brought this to fame to a large degree on the Elite Series. But there's some things about it that I can help you where you're going to catch more fish than 99% of your buddies on it. So we'll get into that in the video. Okay, first of all, I want to talk about the modifications on the Magdraft here a little bit. This is the way the Magdraft looks stock from the package. And you've got a magnet here that holds the hook on place there. But moreover, it's designed where the point of the hook, excuse me, is put back in this little slit here, where it rides like that. But this is the way it looks out of the package. Now, a couple different things that I do to my Magdraft, and you don't have to do this to catch fish. So when I tell you about these modifications, don't think that you can't just take them right out of the box and catch them doing it, because I have, and you can still do it. But there's a couple things that I do that has given me more success on it. So the first thing that I have done with it, guys, you see these slits here? I've taken a pair of scissors and I've slit the side of it a little bit. And by slitting the side of this, what a couple different things it does, gives it a little bit more action. And also when the fish bites it, it sort of collapses the bait a little bit more in their mouth, so you get a better hookup. But I know a lot of guys will probably say, Randy, I'm not going to cut my Magdraft. But it's not going to hurt it at all, because the thing is still intact. You're not going to break anything on it. But you can look at this Magdraft here, guys. Tell me that thing hadn't been ate. Caught tons of fish just on this one here. This is about 2 trips worth on one bait, talking 30 or 40 fish a day. So anyway, I do the slits there. And then another thing I do is, you can see here, sort of like beat up looking. What I've done here on the bottom is I've taken some scissors and I've cut out a little bit off the bottom. Here's the way it is just regularly. And here's the bottom of mine here. So I've nipped off probably about 1/8 of an inch of the plastic right here where the hook goes in. And what this does, it gives these 2 bottom hooks a little bit more bite on them. It's not much, but it makes a difference, because one of the things about any swim bait like this, Magdraft or anyone, there's a tendency for a lot of bass to hit this bait with their mouth shut or grab the tail. So the more hook gap that you have here, like I've created with that, it just sort of makes a little bit of a difference. So that's another thing that I do. Now, if I'm just practicing or fun fishing, I don't, but this is like my tournament, like a tournament model Magdraft that I use. And then guys, I just tie my line, straight to the eye. I don't put any split or anything like that. And so that's the setup to how I fish it. Okay, now before we get into the techniques and the sort of the tricks with it a little bit, one of the things I do is the Magdraft. It's really important the pound test line that you use on it. And the pound test line that you use on a Magdraft, it depends on the size of the Magdraft you're using. If you're using the 5-inch model, which is the smallest one, I'll usually use a 12-pound test Seaguar and VizX fluorocarbon. If I'm using the 6-inch model here, which is probably the most popular size, 15-pound test Seaguar and VizX. And if I'm using the big 8-inch model or the 10-inch model, I'm using 25-pound tests. So those are the three. I throw the big ones on a flipping stick, just my Megabass Alkalies flipping stick, and I throw the other ones on a Megabass Perfect Pitch medium heavy rod, 7'2", on both the 5-inch and the 6-inch model. So that's the setup with it. And I've experimented with a lot of different line tests and a lot of different rod actions, and those are the two that I use the best. And another thing about it is I've always been a big believer in like changing out hooks and modifying hooks. And I do use Gamakatsu hooks a lot. But one thing that I have found about the Magdraft, the stock hook that comes in the Megabass Magdraft from Megabass is the best hook on there. I have more success just on the stock Megabass hook that comes with the bait on any size than any one out there. Okay, now before we get into the areas you want to fish a Magdraft in, specifically during the springtime of the year, the retrieve on a Magdraft is super critical. This is going to help you out a lot. Now, I'm not saying that you just can't throw the Magdraft out there and just start reeling it in and catch one, because you can. But here is the big key to catching bass on the Magdraft. Number one is your speed of retrieve on this bait, regardless of how deep you're fishing it. I don't care if you're fishing it 6 inches deep or 20 foot deep. You have got to use a slow retrieve on this bait. And what you want to do is you want to reel it fast enough, just fast enough where this tail's moving like that. If you reel it too fast, it's going to go on its side like that. If you reel it too slow, the tail's not going to move. So keep your retrieve up there just fast enough to get the tail wagging. And once you do that, it'll also, the head will move sideways like this. So that's what you want. You want that head moving a little bit like that, not much, and that tail wagging. So it's sort of like this. Most of the time in order to do that, it's just sort of about this type of a speed or retrieve right here. I don't ever vary that particular speed, but what I do vary, and this is the most critical thing, guys, if there's one thing to take away from this video, it's what I'm getting ready to tell you here, is the half turn technique. Now, you can throw it out there and you can just reel it in like that and they'll slam the thing, don't get me wrong, but this is what'll get you more bites. Just throw it out there, you're reeling it in like that, reel it 5 or 6 turns, and then go just like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just like that. Now what that's gonna do is the Magdraft's going along like that, across the bottom like that. It's getting the attention of the fish. The fish is coming up and looking at this thing and they're thinking, man, this is a big bait. I don't know if I want to commit to it or not. I can't decide. And this fish is swimming up all around, looking at this thing, working like that. Then you do the half turn and it goes like that real quick. Instinctually, a lot of times that fish will just get it right then. So when it comes like that, coming through, boom, like that, and then you start reeling it again, and that's when I catch a bunch of fish on it. It makes a huge difference by using that half turn. And a lot of times, sometimes what I'll do is I'll reel it like that. I'll do the half turn, and then I'll kill it and let it fall a little bit like that. Sometimes they like that quite a bit. So that's the retrieve and the setup and the outfits there that you want to throw it with. Okay, now another thing is like, where do you want to fish the thing at? Where do you want to throw a Magdraft? This is completely dependent upon the time of the year. And for this specific video, I want to talk about the springtime of the year, which encompasses the pre-spawn, the spawn, and the post-spawn period. Those are the 3 facets of the springtime. I'll be right back. I gotta get a drink of water here, guys. Okay, sorry about that, guys. I just had a bowl of Raisin Nut Brand cereal before I came out here. I got a little piece of cereal in my throat there. So anyway, let's talk about where you want to fish it at. And like I said, we're encompassing the springtime of the year, which is sort of dictated. One of the things that I look for as far as water temperature for the mag draft, I start fishing it usually when that water temperature starts to get in the mid 50s, 54, 55 degrees. And then I'm going to fish it all the way up through the post-spawn period, sort of the early post-spawn when that water temperature starts to get in the low 70s. Now, this is going to be sort of like March, April, and May in most parts of the country, maybe a month later or a month earlier, depending upon what part of the country you're in. But that window of the water temperature is real critical. 55 to about, low 70s is going to be the primo type of situation for water temperature. And then the water clarity with it, there's really, it's a pretty diverse bait in terms of different water clarities that it work in. I want to have at least 2 foot of visibility. I've never really done good on a mag draft if I've got under 2 foot of visibility, but sort of that 2 to 6 foot visibility is perfect for a mag draft. And the thing about it is you can modify your colors based upon the water clarity. I mean, if it's closer to that 2 foot range, then some type of a white or pearl like this whiteback shad's good. And then if in clear water, more like the translucent, like this MB gizzard shad, they got a bunch of different colors. So you sort of have to match the color up, same as you would with like a crankbait or a jerkbait. That is the combination of the water clarity and also the light intensity, because the light intensity is also really critical in terms of getting that proper color in relationship to the water clarity. So sunlight conditions, whether it's cloudy, sunny, partly cloudy. Also, wind plays a factor there too. A little bit windier, usually a little bit brighter when it works. But I have a lot of different colors that I really like. But these are probably 2 of my favorite here, the whiteback shad and the MB gizzard here. I've caught a bunch of fish on those. But there's really not a color they make that I haven't caught them. You can, when you look in that Tackle Warehouse link, you can see all the different colors they got. So that's sort of the conditions that you want to fish. But the main thing is where you want to fish it at and the depth that you want to fish it at. And when we're talking about the springtime of the year, you're talking about fishing it in less than 10 foot of water. Now, if you're fishing it in the pre-spawn period, like when that water temperature is still below 60 degrees, that's when you're going to want to fish the mag draft a little bit deeper. So what I like to do if I'm fishing it when that water temperature is in the 50s, I'm slow rolling the mag draft and I'm letting it sink a little bit. So I'll get on those type of areas where I think those pre-spawn fish are at. It can be submerged grass like hydrilla or milfoil. It can be off the end of a secondary point or a main lake point. It can be down a parallel bluff bank. It could be parallel to a riprap bank. But what I like to do if that water temperature is below 60s is I'll cast the mag draft out. Usually I'll try to cast it in 3 or 4 foot of water. I let it sink almost all the way to the bottom in 3 to 4 foot of water, and then I'll snap it off the bottom and I'll get it going. And I try to slow roll it where the bait is sort of coming through the lower part of the water column. It doesn't have to be on the bottom, but I want it to be like in the bottom 25% of whatever the water depth that I'm fishing is. So let's say, for example, we're out on a point and my boat's in 20 foot of water. So, and if I make a long cast, I can hit the bank. I'm going to be throwing it up to that point in about 3 to 4 foot of water, let it hit the bottom, and then I'm going to slow roll it back. And if my boat's in 20 foot of water, I want the mag draft to be in about 8 or 10 foot of water by the time it gets close back to the boat. So that sort of gives you the arc of that. Now, as the water temperature gets warmer, that's when I'm going to be moving shallower, and I'm going to change my rod angle a little bit. I'm going to change the depth that I'm working at. If I want to slow roll the bait, when I throw it out there and let it hit the bottom, I'm going to have my rod tip low to the water, so I don't have that lift to drag. But as it warms up and that water temperature is above 60, those fish are starting to move in the water, most of the time 5 foot or less. I'm casting it out there and I'm keeping my rod tip high, because when the water temperature is above 60 degrees, I want my mag draft almost in sight all the time. Now, it can drop out of sight a little bit, but I really want to try to see that bait if I can, unless it's cloudy or windy. But anytime that I have found the water temperatures between 60 to 70 degrees, those fish are going to be in the upper 25% of the water column. Now in the pre-spawn, they're in the bottom 25%. As it warms up, they're going to be closer to the surface. So when it gets around 60 or a little bit more, and even into the low 70s, I'm target fishing with the Magdraft. I'm throwing it down the edge of a boat dock. I'm throwing it on the edge of a lay down tree. I'm throwing it on the edge of a visible grass line. If there's a stump in the water, I'm throwing it next to that stump. If there's no cover in the water, like it's a rocky bank or something like that, I'm throwing it right up on the bank, and I'm trying to keep the bait in sight most of the time. Because the thing that's important about keeping the bait in sight, especially in clear water, is you don't want the bait to drop down very deep in clear water if that water temperature is above 60 degrees, because they will not bite it as good. You want to keep that bait higher in the water column, like the top 25%, because when it's in that upper range like that, they can't see the bait as good. They have to come up on it. And a lot of times they don't hesitate, or they won't get spooked off by it. It's almost like a topwater lure coming in like that. So that's a really good, thing to remember on that. Best days on it, for me, the best days with a Magdraft are your lower light days with some wind on it. So if you gave me a perfect situation to catch bass on a Magdraft, as long as the water temperature is over 60 degrees, if it's below 60 degrees, not as much. You can catch them on not as much wind and brighter days. But if that water temperature is over 60, I want to have at least 75% overcast. I prefer it to be completely overcast. And I want like a 10 to 15 mile an hour wind. The combination of that clear water and a little bit of wind and low light conditions and the water temperatures between 60 to 70, that is when you can wreck them on a Magdraft, when they're in that situation there. That's the ideal time for it. They always hit a Magdraft better if you have wind. I don't care what the situation is. I don't care if it's pre-spawn, spawn, or post-spawn. You're going to get twice the bites with some wind. It's not near as easy to catch them on a Magdraft on a calm condition. I'm not saying you can't catch them on it, but if I'm fishing a calm condition and the wind's not blowing much, I want to try to get that Magdraft as close as I can to some type of target. So on a sunny day, I'm going to be throwing it that close to a boat dock, or that close to a lay down tree, or that far off the edge of a lily pad field. I don't want the fish to have to chase it in those situations. So anyway, guys, that's just a few things that can help you catch bass on a Magdraft better than your buddies out there. Like I said, keep an eye on the water temperature, and once it starts to get mid-50s, tie this sucker on. Catches a bunch of fish, and it catches some good ones too. So hope it helps you guys out. Talk later.